Saturday morning at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, buzzed with the usual weekend travel chaos. Flight 892 to Maui was boarding, carrying vacationers, families, and among them newly married couple Jake and Emma Carter. They'd gotten married just 8 hours earlier in a beautiful lakeside ceremony outside Chicago, surrounded by family and friends. Now still in their wedding attire modified for travel, Emma in an elegant white dress and Jake in dress pants and a crisp shirt, they were heading to Hawaii for their honeymoon. Everything was perfect, or so they thought. Aaron noticed them immediately when he boarded. Hard not to notice a bride and groom, Emma still clutching her bouquet of white roses, both wearing small just-married buttons their friends had pinned on them at the airport. They radiated joy, exhaustion, and excitement in equal measure as they settled into seats 12A and 12B. Other passengers smiled at them, offered congratulations, took photos of them that Emma posed for graciously despite her obvious fatigue. The energy around them was celebratory, joyful. Aaron found himself smiling too. Young love heading to paradise. What could be better? Flight attendant Rachel Martinez noticed the newlyweds as she helped them stow their carry-ons. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "When did you get married?" Emma's face lit up. "Last night at 11 p.m. We had an evening ceremony, then partied until 4 in the morning, and now here we are." She laughed, slightly giddy with exhaustion and happiness. Jake wrapped his arm around her. "Best 24 hours of my life," he said, kissing the top of her head. Rachel smiled. "Well, let us know if there's anything we can do to make your honeymoon flight special." Captain Thomas Reed completed his pre-flight checks in the cockpit. It was a straightforward route, Chicago to Maui, about 8.5 hours over the continent and then the Pacific. Weather looked good, maybe some turbulence over the Rockies, but nothing unusual. His first officer, Monica Chen, was reviewing the passenger manifest. "We've got a honeymoon couple on board," she mentioned. "Just married last night, apparently." Thomas smiled. "Let's make sure they have a smooth flight then. Good start to married life." But here's what nobody on that plane knew yet. In a small town 2 hours outside Chicago, Emma's grandfather, William Foster, had collapsed at his breakfast table that morning. He was 92 years old, a World War II veteran, and the man who'd walked Emma down the aisle just hours before. Her father had died when she was young, and Grandpa William had filled that role her entire life. The paramedics had rushed him to the hospital, where doctors were working frantically to stabilize him. Emma's mother and siblings were at the hospital, faces tense with worry, and they faced an impossible decision. Should they call Emma and Jake, ruin the start of their honeymoon, or wait and hope William recovered? The plane pushed back from the gate right on schedule. Emma gazed out the window as they taxied, her hand intertwined with Jake's. "I can't believe we're actually married," she whispered. "I can't believe we're going to Hawaii. I feel like I'm in a dream." Jake squeezed her hand. "Best dream ever. And it's only the beginning, Em. We've got our whole lives ahead of us." They shared a kiss as the plane turned onto the runway, other passengers around them smiling at the display of newlywed affection. The plane took off smoothly, climbing through scattered clouds into brilliant blue sky. Once they reached cruising altitude, Rachel began beverage service. When she reached row 12, she brought champagne for Jake and Emma. "Compliments of the captain," she said with a smile. "Congratulations again." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? That's so sweet." They toasted each other, giddy and grateful. Other passengers in nearby seats raised their own drinks in solidarity. "To the happy couple," someone called out. It felt magical, celebratory, perfect. Aaron watched this scene from 3 rows back and felt genuine happiness for them. Young love, new marriage, heading to paradise with the blessing of strangers. What a way to start a life together. He pulled out his laptop to work, smiling at the occasional laughter from row 12 as Jake and Emma talked quietly, clearly exhausted but too excited to sleep. Everything seemed absolutely perfect. But at that exact moment, 15,000 feet below them, Emma's mother was making the hardest phone call of her life. Rachel was in the galley preparing lunch service when the satellite phone call came through. The captain's voice on the intercom. "Rachel, I need you to come to the cockpit, please." There was something in his tone that made her stomach tighten. She hurried forward. Captain Reed turned to her with a grave expression. "We just received a priority call from ground operations. It's about one of our passengers, Emma Carter. Her family is trying to reach her. Her grandfather suffered a major heart attack this morning. He's in critical condition, and they don't think he'll make it through the day." Rachel felt her heart sink. The bride, the radiant young woman who'd gotten married just hours ago, who was supposed to be starting the happiest chapter of her life. "Do they want us to tell her?" Thomas nodded. "Her mother specifically asked that we inform her. She didn't want Emma to land in Hawaii hours from now and find out her grandfather died while she was in the air. The family wants to give her the choice of whether to continue to Hawaii or turn around." Wait, here's where it gets impossibly difficult. Rachel walked slowly back to row 12, her mind racing. How do you tell a bride on her honeymoon flight that her beloved grandfather is dying? How do you shatter someone's joy that completely? But there was no choice. Emma deserved to know, deserved to make her own decision about what to do. Rachel stopped at row 12, where Emma and Jake were looking at wedding photos on Emma's phone, laughing at something. Emma, Jake, I need to speak with you both privately. Can you come with me to the back of the cabin? Emma's smile faded at Rachel's serious tone. Is something wrong? Rachel just nodded toward the back galley. Emma and Jake exchanged worried glances and unbuckled, following Rachel to the rear of the plane where they'd have some privacy. Other passengers watched curiously. Once they were alone in the galley, Rachel took Emma's hands. Emma, I'm so sorry, but we've received word from your family. Your grandfather collapsed this morning. He's had a major heart attack. He's in critical condition at the hospital. Emma's face went white. Her knees buckled, and Jake caught her, holding her up. Grandpa William? Her voice was barely a whisper. Rachel nodded, tears forming in her own eyes. Your mother wanted you to know. The doctors don't think he has much time. Your family is with him at the hospital. They wanted to give you the option of turning around, going back to Chicago to be with him. Emma stared at Rachel like she couldn't process the words. Then she started shaking, great sobs building in her chest. Jake held his wife as she broke down, her wedding bouquet falling to the floor of the galley. No, 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 Emma kept repeating. Not Grandpa William, not today, not now. Jake's own eyes filled with tears. He'd loved William too, had asked the old man for permission to marry Emma, had valued his wisdom and kindness. But right now, Jake had to be strong for Emma. What do you want to do, love? He asked gently. Do you want to turn around? Go back to Chicago? Emma couldn't speak through her sobs. Rachel gently suggested. The captain can turn the plane around. We're only about 90 minutes out from Chicago still. You could be back there in a few hours. Or if you prefer, we can arrange for a call patch so you can speak with your grandfather or your family from the plane. Emma looked up at Jake, her face destroyed by grief. I don't know what to do. We're supposed to be going to Hawaii, our honeymoon. But Grandpa William, you won't believe what Jake said next. He cupped Emma's face in his hands, looking directly into her eyes. Em, listen to me. Your grandfather walked you down the aisle last night. He gave you away. He saw you get married, which he told me was his final wish. He was so happy, so proud. I think he held on just to see that day. And he did. He saw it. You gave him that gift. Emma sobbed harder. But I need to say goodbye. I need to tell him I love him one more time. Rachel quietly offered, I can arrange a call right now if you want. The plane has satellite phone capability. You can talk to him or to your family. Emma nodded frantically. Yes, please. Yes. Rachel moved quickly, coordinating with the cockpit. Within 5 minutes they had a connection to the hospital. Emma's mother came on the line first, her voice breaking. Emma, honey, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but Grandpa wanted me to call. He wanted you to know he loves you. Then a weaker voice came on the line, barely audible. Emma girl? Is that my Emma girl? It was William, somehow conscious, somehow strong enough to speak despite his failing heart. Emma pressed the phone to her ear, tears streaming. Grandpa, I'm here. I'm here. I love you so much. Please don't leave me. Please. William's voice was faint but clear. Now don't you cry, baby girl. I saw you marry that good man. I saw you in your beautiful dress. I walked you down that aisle. That was my job, and I did it. I'm so proud of you. Emma was shaking so hard Jake had to help her hold the phone. Grandpa, I'm coming back. We're turning the plane around. I'll be there in a few hours. Just hold on. But William's voice was firm despite its weakness. No, Emma. You listen to me. You're going to Hawaii. You're going to have your honeymoon with your husband. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't want my dying to ruin the start of your marriage. You hear me? Emma started to protest, but William continued, his breath labored. I'm 92 years old. I've lived a long, good life. I got to see you grow up. I got to walk you down the aisle. I got to give you to a man who'll love you right. That's everything I needed. You go to Hawaii. You be happy. That's what I want. The entire back galley was silent except for Emma's sobs. Rachel was crying. Jake was crying. Even a flight attendant who'd come back to check on them was wiping her eyes. Emma struggled to speak. I can't just leave you. I can't be thousands of miles away when you... She couldn't finish. William's voice grew softer. Emma girl, I'll be with you wherever you are. In your heart, in your memories, in every good thing you do with your life. Distance doesn't matter. Love doesn't have distance. You know that. Now here's what broke everyone listening. William asked, Is Jake there? Jake leaned close to the phone. I'm here, sir. William's voice strengthened slightly. Jake, you take care of my girl. You love her every day. You remember that life is short and precious. You make every moment count. Promise me. Jake's voice cracked. I promise, sir. I swear I'll take care of her. I'll love her every day for the rest of my life. William made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's all I needed to hear. Now you two go to Hawaii. Make me proud. Be happy. That's an old man's dying wish. Emma was shaking her head, still sobbing, but William wasn't done. Emma, you remember what I told you before I walked you down that aisle? I said life is going to throw hard things at you. But if you choose love, if you choose gratitude, if you choose to see the gifts instead of the losses, you'll be okay. I'm a gift, baby girl. 92 years is a gift. Walking you down that aisle was a gift. Even dying today, knowing you're safe and loved and starting your beautiful life, that's a gift. Don't turn it into tragedy. Keep it as gift. The phone line grew quiet. Emma could hear medical equipment beeping, voices in the background. Her mother came back on. Emma, he's getting tired. The doctors say he doesn't have much longer. What do you want to do? Emma looked at Jake, then at Rachel, then down at her wedding bouquet on the floor. She was silent for a long moment. Then she picked up the bouquet, held it close, and said something that shocked everyone. I'm going to Hawaii. Grandpa's right. He gave me his blessing. He saw me get married. I'm going to honor his wish. Emma put the phone back to her ear. Grandpa, I'm going to Hawaii like you wanted. But you stay with me, okay? You stay in my heart. I love you so much. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being my father when I didn't have one. Thank you for loving me so perfectly. Thank you for last night. It was the most beautiful night of my life because you were there. William's voice came through one last time, barely a whisper. That's my strong girl. I love you, Emma. I'm so proud of you. Now go be happy. Go live your beautiful life. The call ended. Emma collapsed into Jake's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Rachel gave them space, quietly informing the captain that they would continue to Hawaii. Word spread through the cabin about what was happening. The newlyweds' joy had been shattered by impending death, but they were continuing forward on the dying grandfather's insistence. Passengers who'd been celebrating with them earlier now sat in stunned silence, many crying themselves. Aaron, who'd been working on his laptop, heard the story from a flight attendant and felt his heart break. The bride and groom, so joyful just an hour ago, now dealing with profound grief at the start of their honeymoon. The grandfather who'd lived long enough to walk his granddaughter down the aisle and then asked her to keep going forward even as he prepared to die. The impossible choice, and the courage to honor an old man's final wish. It was devastating and beautiful all at once. Rachel helped Emma and Jake back to their seats. Emma's eyes were red and swollen, her wedding dress wrinkled from being held so tightly. Jake kept his arm around her, whispering comfort that probably didn't help but was all he could offer. They sat together in silent grief as the plane continued west over the Rocky Mountains toward the Pacific. The champagne sat untouched. The wedding photos were put away. The joy was gone, replaced by the heavy weight of impending loss. But then something remarkable happened. The passenger in the seat behind Emma, an elderly woman who'd been watching the whole situation unfold, leaned forward and gently touched Emma's shoulder. Sweetheart, I couldn't help but overhear some of what happened. I lost my husband last year, and I want you to know that your grandfather is right. My husband made me promise that if he went first, I wouldn't stop living. He said life is for the living, and love honors the dead by continuing forward. You're doing the right thing. Another passenger, a middle-aged man across the aisle, spoke up. My father died while I was overseas in the military. I couldn't get back in time. I struggled with guilt for years until my mother told me something. She said my father wouldn't have wanted me to abandon my duty to hold his hand at the end. He was proud of my service. Your grandfather is proud of you right now. He wanted this for you. Emma nodded, unable to speak but clearly absorbing the words. One by one, other passengers shared their own stories of loss, of difficult choices, of honoring loved ones by living fully. The plane became an impromptu grief support group, strangers offering comfort to a devastated bride. Rachel and the other flight attendants brought tissues, water, words of support. Captain Reed made a brief announcement asking passengers to please give the newlyweds privacy and compassion during a difficult time, and to the credit of everyone on board, they did. 3 hours into the flight, Emma's mother called again on the satellite phone. Rachel brought it to Emma, who took it with shaking hands. Mom? Her mother's voice was thick with tears. He's gone, sweetheart. Grandpa William passed away about 10 minutes ago. He was surrounded by family. His last words were about you. He said, Emma's going to be fine. She's strong like her grandmother. Then he just went to sleep. It was peaceful. Emma broke down again, and this time her grief was pure, unfiltered by uncertainty or impossible choices. Her grandfather was gone. The man who'd raised her, loved her, walked her down the aisle just hours ago, was dead. Jake held her as she sobbed, his own tears flowing freely. They grieved together at 37,000 feet, beginning their marriage not with joy and celebration as planned, but with profound loss and the hard work of carrying on despite heartbreak. Rachel sat with them for a while, not saying much, just present. Other flight attendants took over her duties so she could offer support. My grandfather died on my wedding day too, Rachel shared quietly. Different circumstances, but I understand what you're feeling. The guilt of being happy while someone you love is dying. The surreal nature of grief and joy colliding. It takes time to process, but I promise you, in time you'll see that your grandfather gave you an incredible gift. He held on long enough to see you married, and then he let go, telling you to keep living. That's love in its purest form. Aaron approached the couple during a break in the grief, introducing himself. I'm a writer. I document stories of extraordinary courage in ordinary people. What you're doing right now, honoring your grandfather's wish to continue forward, choosing to start your marriage even in the midst of grief, that's extraordinary courage. Would you be willing to let me tell your story? Emma looked at Jake, who nodded gently. Emma wiped her eyes. If it helps someone else someday, then yes. Grandpa William always said our pain should have purpose. Maybe this is the purpose of our pain today. The rest of the flight was surreal. Emma would cry, then laugh at a memory of William, then cry again. Jake held her through it all, his own grief taking second place to supporting his wife. Passengers continued to offer support. A woman gave Emma a rosary. A man shared a poem about death and love. A teenager gave Emma her headphones and a playlist titled Songs That Help When Things Hurt. The plane became a flying memorial service, a community of strangers united in supporting two people they didn't know. As they approached Hawaii, Rachel made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rachel. As many of you know, we have a honeymoon couple on board who received devastating news mid-flight. Emma's grandfather passed away while we were in the air. I want to thank all of you for the compassion and support you've shown them. In a few minutes, we'll be landing in Maui. I'd like to ask that everyone remain seated after we land and allow Emma and Jake to deplane first, so they can begin processing what comes next in privacy. Thank you for being the best of humanity today. When the plane touched down in Maui, the entire cabin remained silent and seated as Emma and Jake gathered their things. Emma clutched her bouquet, now slightly wilted but still beautiful. As they walked up the aisle to exit, every single passenger stood, not applauding this time, but standing in respect, in solidarity, in recognition of their courage. Some passengers put hands over hearts. Others bowed their heads. One elderly veteran saluted. The gesture was powerful, overwhelming. Emma and Jake walked through this corridor of human compassion, tears streaming down both their faces. At the gate, the airline had arranged for a private room where Emma and Jake could speak with Emma's family and begin making arrangements. Emma's mother, brothers, and sister were on video call, and they spent an hour together crying, sharing memories of William, discussing funeral arrangements. The family agreed that Emma and Jake would stay in Hawaii for a few days as William had wanted, then fly back for the funeral. He'd be furious if you came back immediately, Emma's mother said with a teary laugh. He very explicitly wanted you to have your honeymoon. Honor that. Take a few days, be together, grieve together, then come home. Over the next 3 days in Maui, Emma and Jake did exactly that. They grieved, walking on beaches where Emma cried while waves crashed around them. They celebrated William's life, toasting him with Mai Tais at sunset while sharing stories. They loved each other, finding comfort in physical closeness and emotional intimacy. They laughed at funny William memories, then cried at the realization he was really gone. Their honeymoon became a strange hybrid of joy and grief, celebration and mourning, a beginning shadowed by an ending. But here's what Emma told Aaron when he interviewed her a month later. In a weird way, Grandpa William gave us the greatest wedding gift possible. He taught us, on day one of our marriage, that life is hard, that joy and grief coexist, that love means showing up for each other in the worst moments, not just the good ones. Jake and I have seen each other at our lowest now. We've grieved together, supported each other, chosen each other during the hardest day of our lives. Most couples don't get tested like that until years into marriage. We got tested immediately, and we passed. That makes our foundation unshakable. Jake agreed. People kept saying they were sorry our honeymoon was ruined, but it wasn't ruined. It was real. Real life includes death and grief. William's death didn't ruin our marriage's beginning. It clarified what our marriage is about. Being together through everything, choosing love even when it's hard, finding meaning in loss. Those aren't things you learn during an easy honeymoon in paradise. Those are things you learn when paradise gets interrupted by real life, and you choose to keep going anyway. The story of Emma and Jake's honeymoon flight went viral after Aaron published it. News outlets picked it up, morning shows interviewed them, but the most meaningful responses came from other people who'd experienced loss during significant life events. A woman who'd lost her mother the day before her wedding, a man whose father died during his college graduation, people who'd felt guilty for experiencing joy while grieving. Emma and Jake's story gave them permission to hold both emotions simultaneously. You can be sad about what you lost and grateful for what you had. Emma said in interviews. Grandpa William taught me that in his final conversation, he reframed his own death as a gift. 92 years, walking me down the aisle, seeing me safely married. He chose to see the gift, not the loss. I'm trying to do the same. Yes, I lost my grandfather on my wedding day, but I gained a husband and my grandfather got to see that happen. Both things are true. Both things matter. The passengers from Flight 89-2 stayed connected through a Facebook group. They'd shared something profound that day, and many felt changed by it. The elderly woman who'd first offered comfort to Emma became a mentor to her, sharing wisdom about grief and marriage. The veteran who'd saluted attended William's funeral in full dress uniform, honoring a fellow veteran he'd never met. The teenage girl who'd shared her playlist became Emma's pen pal, and Emma mentored her through her own family difficulties. Rachel Martinez, the flight attendant who delivered the devastating news, struggled with her role in shattering Emma's joy. She called Emma a few weeks after the flight to apologize. "I keep thinking about how happy you were, and then I had to tell you your grandfather was dying. I feel like I ruined your honeymoon." Emma stopped her. "Rachel, you didn't ruin anything. You gave me the gift of choice. You let me talk to my grandfather one last time. You helped create space for my grief. You turned a plane full of strangers into a support system. You didn't ruin my honeymoon. You made it meaningful." A year after the flight, Emma and Jake returned to Maui for their first anniversary. They brought some of William's ashes and scattered them in the ocean at sunset, as he'd requested. "He wanted to be in Hawaii with us," Emma explained to Aaron, who'd flown out to document the moment. "He couldn't be there in body, but his spirit is here now. We're completing the journey we started together." As the ashes dissolved into the Pacific waves, Emma felt a sense of peace. William was home, and so was she, with Jake, carrying forward the legacy of love and resilience her grandfather had modeled. The airline used Emma and Jake's story in their crisis management training. How do you deliver devastating news mid-flight? How do you support passengers through grief? Rachel's handling of the situation became the gold standard. Lead with compassion, the training materials emphasized. Recognize that you might be shattering someone's world. Give them privacy, options, and dignity. Remember that the cabin crew and passengers can become a support system if treated as partners in care, rather than just customers to serve. Aaron included Emma and Jake's story in his book about courage in crisis, titling the chapter Beginning in Grief. He wrote, "We imagine marriage should start with pure joy, unblemished happiness, a honeymoon of bliss. But Emma and Jake Carter began their marriage with death, grief, and impossible choices, and rather than destroying their foundation, it strengthened it. They learned on day one what some couples never learn, that love isn't about protecting each other from pain, but about walking through pain together. That commitment isn't a promise that life will be easy, but a promise to face the hard things as a team. That's real love. Not the Instagram-worthy moments, but the hospital phone calls and the crying at 37,000 feet, and the choice to keep going forward because that's what love does." 3 years after the honeymoon flight, Emma gave birth to a baby boy. She and Jake named him William Jacob Carter, honoring the grandfather who'd shaped Emma's life and set the tone for her marriage. At his baptism, Emma spoke about her grandfather's final gift. "Grandpa William taught me that death is not the opposite of love. Fear is. He refused to let fear of death prevent him from loving fully, from blessing my marriage, from encouraging us forward, even as he was dying. I want to raise William Jacob with that same fearless love, to love big, to bless generously, to encourage others forward, even when it costs us something. That's the legacy we're carrying forward." The little boy grew up hearing stories about his namesake, about the great-grandfather who'd been a World War II hero, who'd raised his granddaughter after her father died, who'd walked her down the aisle on his last night of health, who'd called from his hospital bed to tell her to keep going, to choose life, to honor his death by living fully. Young William would look at pictures of the old man and see the family resemblance, the same eyes, the same stubborn chin. "I'm going to be brave like great-grandpa," the boy would say. Emma would hug him and think, "You already are. The bravery is in your DNA, passed down through generations." Jake's relationship with his father-in-law had been brief but profound. In the months between meeting Emma and their wedding, Jake had spent countless hours with William, absorbing the old man's wisdom. "Love is a choice you make every day," William had told him. "It's not about feelings, though feelings are nice. It's about commitment, about showing up, about putting her needs alongside your own, about being present through the boring days and the hard days and the days when love feels like work. That's when love matters most." Jake had lived by that advice, especially during that devastating honeymoon, and it had made all the difference. 10 years after the honeymoon flight, Emma, Jake, and their 3 children returned to Maui. They'd made it a tradition, going every few years to honor William's memory and to remember how their marriage began. On this trip, their eldest son William was 7, old enough to understand the story. Emma and Jake took him to the beach where they'd scattered his great-grandfather's ashes. "This is where Great-Grandpa William is," Emma explained. "He loved this place. He wanted to be here with us." Little William looked out at the Pacific, thoughtful. "Is he sad he died?" Emma considered how to answer. "I don't think so, sweetheart. He lived a long life. He got to make sure we were okay before he left. I think he was ready, and I think he's happy watching us now, seeing our family, knowing we're living the life he wanted for us." The boy nodded solemnly. "I'm going to live a good life too, so he's proud." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "He's already proud, baby, so proud." That evening, as they watched the sunset, Emma reflected on the past decade. The marriage that had begun with death had flourished into life. 3 children, a home filled with love and laughter, careers that fulfilled them, deep friendships, including lasting connections with people from that flight, a commitment to living fully, to honoring William's memory by embodying his values. "We didn't get the fairy tale honeymoon," Emma said to Jake, holding his hand as waves lapped at their feet. "But we got something better. We got a foundation built on real life, on grief and choice and courage. That's stronger than any fairy tale." Jake squeezed her hand. "I was thinking about what William said on that phone call, that love doesn't have distance, that he'd be with you wherever you were. He was right. I feel him in how you parent our kids, how you face challenges, how you choose gratitude over bitterness. He's still here, Em, still teaching us, still loving us." Emma leaned her head on Jake's shoulder, watching their children play in the sand. "Best wedding gift we ever could have received. The gift of knowing what matters." Aaron's final update to their story, published on the 10th anniversary of the honeymoon flight, focused on legacy. William Foster died on April 16th, 10 years ago. But his death was not an ending. It was a transformation. His values, his love, his wisdom live on in Emma and Jake's marriage, in their parenting, in the choices they make daily. They carry him forward. That's the real victory over death. Not avoiding it, not denying it, but transforming it into ongoing life and love. William's death didn't ruin Emma and Jake's beginning. It consecrated it. It made their marriage sacred from the first day, marked by sacrifice and choice and the refusal to let grief destroy joy. The story resonated with millions of readers because it touched something universal: the collision of joy and grief, the impossible choices life forces on us, the courage to keep going forward, even when everything in you wants to stop. Emma and Jake became symbols of resilient love, of marriage that starts in the real world rather than fantasy, of honoring the dead by living fully. Schools used their story in lessons about grief. Therapists shared it with clients struggling with loss. Wedding officiants quoted William's final words to couples beginning their own journeys: "Choose love, choose gratitude, choose to see gifts instead of losses." William Foster's dying wisdom became a mantra for thousands of people navigating their own hard things. Emma had those words inscribed on a piece of jewelry she wore every day, a reminder of her grandfather's final teaching. Jake had them tattooed on his ribs over his heart, so William's words would be with him always. They taught their children to live by those words too. Choose love, especially when it's hard. Choose gratitude, especially when life feels unfair. Choose to see gifts, especially when loss feels overwhelming. 15 years after the honeymoon flight, Emma and Jake renewed their vows in Hawaii. Many of the passengers from that original flight attended, having stayed connected through the years. Rachel Martinez, the flight attendant who delivered the devastating news, officiated the ceremony. She spoke about the journey she'd witnessed, from devastated newlyweds to a couple whose love had been tested and proven in the hardest way. "You began your marriage in grief, and you've built it into joy. That's the most powerful testimony to William Foster's legacy I can imagine." During the ceremony, Emma spoke directly about her grandfather. "Grandpa William, you're not here in body, but you're here in everything that matters. In the commitment Jake and I have to each other. In the courage we've found during hard times. In the 3 beautiful children you never got to meet but who carry your name and your values. In the life we've built that honors your final request. Be happy, live fully, choose love. We've done that. We're still doing it, and we will continue doing it for the rest of our lives. Thank you for the gift of that last conversation. Thank you for teaching us how to begin. We love you forever." There wasn't a dry eye at the ceremony. Even people who'd never met William felt his presence, his influence, his enduring legacy. The celebration that followed was full of joy, yes, but also full of acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been gained. Emma danced with her son William, who was now 15, and looked remarkably like his great-grandfather in old photos. Jake danced with their daughters. The passengers from Flight 8092 shared stories of how that day had changed them, made them more compassionate, more aware of life's fragility and preciousness. That night, as Emma and Jake stood on their hotel balcony overlooking the Pacific, Emma felt complete peace for the first time since her grandfather's death. "He's here," she said softly. "Can you feel it? Grandpa William is here. In the ocean breeze, in the sound of the waves, in the happiness of today. He kept his promise. Love doesn't have distance. He's been with us all along." Jake wrapped his arms around his wife, 15 years married, weathered by life's challenges but stronger for them. "We kept our promise too. We lived fully. We chose happiness. We honored him by building something beautiful." The story of Flight 8092, of Emma and Jake Carter, of William Foster's final gift to his granddaughter, became a testament to the resilience of human love, that we can begin in grief and arrive at joy, that death doesn't destroy love but transforms it, that courage looks like a bride choosing to continue forward even as her grandfather dies, that strength looks like a groom supporting his wife through the worst day of her life on what should have been the best, that wisdom looks like an old man using his dying breath to bless rather than burden, that legacy looks like values and love passed down through generations, shaping how people face their own impossible moments. Aaron closed his final article about Emma and Jake with a reflection that captured everything he'd learned from their story. 15 years ago, a plane took off carrying a bride and groom toward paradise. It also carried heartbreak, death, and impossible choices. But that flight didn't end in tragedy. It ended in transformation. Emma and Jake Carter learned on their honeymoon that marriage isn't about avoiding pain, it's about facing pain together and choosing love anyway. That's not the fairy tale we're sold, but it's real. And real, it turns out, is better than fantasy. Because real love survives real loss. Real love transforms grief into growth. Real love honors the dead by living fully. That's the legacy of Flight 8092. That's the gift William Foster gave from his deathbed. And that's the story that continues every day in a marriage that began in the hardest way possible and became unbreakable because of it.